Hello, I will continue. I just made one video and I feel so inspired. I will do another one. And this time the topic will be uh, when does mobbing for little girls especially start? And it's awakening for me to see, since I'm a new mom, since I have a daughter that is 2 years and 4 months, how much she awakens all the unconscious wounds from my childhood, from my entire life, let's say, how much she uncovers the conditioning that we women have. Where does this conditioning start? Because I all the stuff from my childhood and from my upbringing was a little bit stored somewhere. I think my body was not ready yet. My body was not ready yet to deal with it. So I really thought like it's the media. It's in the teenage years when you start to look at different media stuff like TV, now with social media, all kind of these magazines. So I thought there, or also at school, that you start to get really mobbed as a girl and have all these ideas about your body, the way you look, about skinny, not skinny, about basically everything about your being. People can start to mob you. And I shared, it's a very deep topic and it's very uncomfortable because I see, since I am in a new phase in my life where I can no longer suppress things and be quiet about things that I find injustice, especially now as I'm standing up for my daughter, setting boundaries for me and for her. I see that it's a very uncomfortable topic, especially in the family systems, in the cultures, and the older consciousness level doesn't like to be challenged with boundaries and new ways of thinking and behaving when we want to raise consciously our children and not pass on our deep wounds, traumas, and just bully them. So there's so many things that I'm experiencing, but especially maybe it's important for me to say that I really don't I really don't say this. The more I heal my inner child, the more I stand up for myself, the more deep I go, the more I understand the deep unconscious level of other people. So whenever I say something from my culture or from my family line or from other people in my surrounding, I no longer say this with judgment or with a lot of judgment, because I really understand now, as I'm going through my deep healing process, where all those crazy wounds, patterns, passing on comes from. But we still have to speak about it, because the more, maybe not all the people from the older generations will accept that. Maybe they will never accept it. Maybe they will leave this world without even knowing how much they hurt their children or their grandchildren with their words, their actions, with this old way of raising children, with controlling them, shaming them, beating them up, really, like spanking them. And especially all kind of techniques that we try to control children. And I just have to mention, I know why we do that. I mean, I'm working on myself, and most of the stuff how I was raised I will never do. But there are still some patterns coming up for me as well. But I know now why we do that, because first of all, we are so freaking scared what will other people think of us. We don't want to look like we are failing at parenting. And we actually do that so our suppressed shame from our childhood doesn't come up to the surface. So this is something I'm discovering myself. No one ever told me that. So I realize when my daughter behaves in certain ways, what kind of stuff is coming up, and I realize, shit, this is all my suppressed shame from my childhood. And what will other people think and say about me? Look, I'm failing as a mother. I'm not a good parent, and I'm not disciplining my child well. My child is not behaving well. But thanks God we have this new information about in which stages our kids are and which development stage, so we can choose to just accept it that they, at 2 years, they will have tantrums, they will hit, they will throw themselves on the floor, they cannot follow rules, their brain is not developed yet there. But the older generations, the older consciousness cannot deal with that so well. Doesn't have this information. It's not, they never did the work. They never did the inner work. They never felt their childhood wounds, so they cannot even understand what we're talking about. But I want to come to the point because I realized that for young girls, and I'm sure also for young boys, the mobbing started in their family with their mother, father, brother, sister, grandmother, grandfather. And then that gets like, you just get used to that, and then it just keeps on continuing in school, through media, through all kind of system. Your boss starts to mob you, other co-workers start to mob you, but you're just used to that energy since your childhood. And now I'm again in Serbia and being with a lot of different people, family members, extended, like a lot of people coming together and their little kids, age as my daughter, or even bigger, like 7, 8, 9 years. And the amount of comments of basically shaming and mobbing little girls I hear, it's so disturbing, it's so triggering. But I had to build more and more courage and make myself and everyone on the table uncomfortable. I'm doing that now over and over again. I'm a recovering people pleaser, so it's not really comfortable for me to make other people, especially older generations, because it was so ingrained in me, like you respect the older generations, they are the authority. So I see also now how that played out in my life. And I feel very uncomfortable when on one table I'm the only person speaking up. And then you create a very weird energy. But I started to do that because I can no longer shut my mouth. I have to do it for the children, for my child. My child is sitting next to me and listening. And I'm also doing it for my inner child because no one did that for me. So I'm doing that for me, for my daughter, and for all the other girls. So what I experienced, I will just shortly tell you, it's crazy how much shaming girls experience with food. Like I was sitting in a lot of environments where I could just not enjoy my food because the constant theme on the tables was food. Don't eat too much, don't eat this. Sit there at the table, food. Why are you eating too much sugar? This. So, and then telling kids what kind of foods are poison while we're eating. So it's food. You're eating, but people are constantly just shaming children with the food and controlling their input of their food. When do they, you have to finish this, don't eat that too much, don't eat this, you have to eat this, the entire meal. And it's so freaking disturbing. And then I realized, of course you don't know your limits and your inner voice with foods and stuff, because people are constantly trying to control you since the moment you were born with foods. And then constantly making comments on how they look. You're too thin, you don't have an ass, you might get too fat if you eat too much of this. So constantly this control. And I just want to say that because this is healing for a lot of us. Maybe it will not change the situation, but just to understand that, and then to slowly start to stand up for those little girls would be helpful. Then I started to observe the pattern here. I always knew it somehow, but the pattern just showed itself very clear to me. The grandparents are constantly commenting on the kids, and the kids are like my age or older. They're so fat. You should stop there. You should actually stop when it's the sweetest for you with food. And then constantly just judging and making comments and gossiping about other bodies. And then these kids my age do the same with their younger kids. And then these younger kids do the same, for example, with my daughter, about food. So you see how that goes. It went from the grandparents from 1950s and 40s to 1970s and 80s to 2000 something to 2022. It's crazy. And if people and then I ask myself, what would be the cure here? And I think the cure would be if our generation start to take ownership of our bodies, of our food intake, and of our own healing. So those comments of our parents, of the grandparents, don't trigger us any longer. And we set boundaries to them. We say, I no longer want you to comment on my food and on my body. This is your insecurity. Please respect that. I realized there is the start. It's not in the grandparents, because maybe they will not even get there yet to even understand that this is their insecurity. They cannot stand their bodies. They're constantly worries, am I fat, am I not fat? They're not confident. Of course, they're older, maybe they feel terrible, they don't feel well in their bodies, because if you had complex when you were young, you might also have complex when you age, because your skin is hanging and you just don't look the same. So, and they were shamed also the same way, for sure. Not only shamed, they were terrified with foods. They didn't have food. So I think this control over food is like passed down from generation to generation, and the shaming and the mobbing of little girls, it's just continuing until someone doesn't do the look at their own wounds. What can I do now to take ownership of my life and of this pattern? And what I do, I just never was obsessing about the food my daughter is eating. Maybe I cannot say never. I also catch myself sometimes just thinking, is she eating enough? But I never forced her. I realized very quickly, no, I just want her. I leave her. When she wants to eat, she eats. When she doesn't, she doesn't. She can stand up when she wants. She can do whatever she wants. Not in this extent, but with food, I don't control over her food. I don't make comments constantly. I don't force her. But take one more. But take one more. But for my love, you see that. But for my love, take one more. But you love mommy, take more. So it's manipulation. And yeah, also in this last 2 weeks, I again had experience. I was so angry. I was as well sitting on a table with a lot of people and 3 kids and just one girl. In Serbian, sometimes you can have it's a hard language. You can have like mispronunciation of some, instead of saying r, you say r. So a few kids have that, and it can get better with the time. And then this cute little girl in front of we were 8 people or more at the table said, "Oh, can I have this sira?" And then she said, mispronounced it, and the whole table started to laugh at her because she mispronounced it. She's 8, and I don't know, in my body, I just get so angry with this kind of behavior. And I just tried to somehow handle this situation. And then I felt terrible the entire day because this energy is so terrible. And you are eating, you want to enjoy your meal, but then you have this mobbing going on and everyone is laughing. No one is really aware of that bullshit. And then I couldn't sleep. And then the next day I said to myself, you have to freaking stand up. You have to stand up. And this bullshit has to stop. Even if you're the only person on the table, even if everyone is mostly older, and you have to be respectful, and you don't know everyone very well, and you might also, your father will feel shame for your behavior, like I'm a little girl still, Also these patterns come up in me because my father was also present at this table. And I just said, no freaking way. First of all, when I arrived at this place, I sent love from my heart. I said, please, I send love everyone because they need love, because they would not mob other people if they would not feel terrible within themselves and shamed and whatever. So I did that, but then again at the table, exactly the same thing happened. Like this girl, this time she said it even correctly, and they started again. Like it's a pattern for them. And I was like, can we stop laughing at her? Because when I'm angry, I have this very intense energy, but I cannot control it. I was like, can we stop laughing at her? And then everyone started to find excuses. Like the woman, and then even the other little kid had excuses. It was just normality for them. And then my father started to have excuses, and everyone started to have excuses. And I'm like, no, I just don't feel comfortable when we laugh at someone, when the whole table laughs at someone. It's not nice. Like, can you please stop and leave this girl alone? Like, you would also not feel good if someone would do that to you. And then he got so freaking uncomfortable. And I was like, will I be able to finish my meal here? Because it's so fucking uncomfortable. But I just dealt with my discomfort and with this weird energy at the table, because everyone was quiet after that. So someone freaking had to say something, and I'm like the younger one. I should have respect for the older generation. But I'm like, we cannot mob this child like this. Someone has to stand up. And I'm just more and more this person, because we have to do that. We really have to do that. We cannot, even if we feel uncomfortable, we are scared, whatever, we have to do it. Even if it's not our, because mostly we think, oh, it's not our kid, we should not like put ourselves into situations that are not ours, but in these situations we have to do it. So I will finish here. So know that by these examples, someone is yelling a little bit, going intense with the emotions. Yeah, no, from these examples, it's a deep-rooted pattern, deep-rooted pain that people pass on that they're not aware of, but we have to change that pattern from our generation. Yeah. Okay, dears, I come back with other videos. If you feel like I don't like this pattern here on this channel, subscribe, like, and stuff. If you like. If you like this topic, subscribe. But you're a grown-up, you do whatever you feel like. No one should tell you that. Even YouTube algorithms plays this way. Okay, bye-bye. See you soon.